What's up, y'all? A wonderful Tuesday to each and every one of you all across the world, internationally, nationally, or and locally. I just want to say a lot of people these days aren't doing what's in the Bible. They are not doing what's in the Bible. They're not practicing Matthew 18, 15 through 17. If you have a brother with your brother, go to your brother. If your brother don't receive you, take a witness. You seek elders. And if your brother still doesn't receive you, get out of God's way. They're not practicing that. You know, people are not practicing Ezekiel 33 around verse 16 or 17 through 33, where it says the watchman ought to warn people. And basically, it's saying you are held accountable by God for what you know. And if you know something and you know you're supposed to warn people in regards to God about that something and you don't, and those people fall to whatever that situation is, whatever that thing is, that blood is on your hands. But if you warn these people and they still do wrong, then your hands are clean. It's not a lot of people practicing that. It's not a lot of people practicing Luke chapter 5, casting out into the deep. You got people who say if something don't work for a little bit of time, quit, do something else. It ain't gonna work for you. That's it. You got people persevering in faith, persevering in destiny, and you don't have people moving purposefully to tell people how great God has been to them. And what I mean by how great God has been to them, you know you ain't wake yourself up today. You know you didn't wake yourself up yesterday and you didn't wake yourself up before. That's greatness for some of us. Some people was hoping they ain't wake up. But let me tell you this, when you wake up, that means it's something. This is just coming from me. Every day I wake up. When you wake up, it may be something that you didn't do, and that's the reason why you still woke up. And this is coming from somebody who has been suicidal. In 2016, I was delivered from that. This is coming from somebody who was suffering in alcoholism since 2016, and before that, I've been sober from alcohol since July 14, 2016. I haven't been suicidal since 2016. I mean, you got people who, when it comes to, like I said, Luke chapter 5, they're not cashing out into the deep. They're listening to the friends, they're listening to the crowd. And then you got some people in the crowd and spectators, people connected to you, loved ones, family, friends, affiliates, haters who connected to you, who see that you're struggling in the area that you have no doubt God put in you to work in, work through, to work that thing. And they're not going to help you because they're making mockery of your God. People who go to church and even sometimes people who preach and people who taught you the word and people who put the prayer emojis, they ain't really praying for you. They ain't really hoping you do well. Because somebody praying for you, hoping you do well, they gonna get hands on and get involved a lot of times. I know the most authentic people I know who know what I'm trying to accomplish, they get involved. Just like God would get involved. So you keep working that Luke chapter 5, you keep casting out to the deep. See, a lot of people aren't talking Bible. They're talking fight. They're talking, look out for yourself. They're talking unforgiveness. They're talking grudge. They're talking what you did 5 years ago, what you did 10 years ago, what you did 20 years ago. They're talking R. Kelly mess. They're talking this P. Diddy mess. And those are still people that need to be prayed for. Don't get me wrong. Those are still people who need to be delivered. Those are still people who may need to be saved and or advocated for in some way. Not advocated for freedom because I don't know what they did, what they did not do, but advocated for their soul. Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all catch that on your own. You still got the young boy that's locked up. What's his name? Lil Durk. And then you got what's going on with Deion Sanders right now. Antonio Brown's picking. He's woofing at him. And then Pac-Man Jones jumped in and he's letting Antonio Brown know like, yo, AB leave Prime and his children alone, which is correct. That's what good friends ought to do. Like I said, good friends don't just pray; they get involved. You got with the NFL with the little entanglement that they had trying not to draft Shador for a long time, which was a play maybe for the Browns to save money. I don't know, but nobody's talking Bible. Nobody's talking Bible. I think Shador already knew. He already knew they was going to try to humiliate him because he comes from money. He already knew they was going to try to humiliate him. And this is just me making an inference because he has confidence, because he has goodness in his heart. Even though they may see the little, Shador, that don't make him a bad person. That don't make them a bad person. Imagine what you was doing when you was 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 in college. You get what I'm saying? You was having you a good old time. You get what I'm saying? And being consistent and being athletic and being a good public figure. Hats off to the Sanders family, to all of y'all, all of you all. Hats off. Well Off Media, hats off Coach Prime, hats off Shiloh, Shador, hats off Dior, I'm gonna mess her name up with the baby, Deordra, Deoya, Shalimar. Hats off to everybody. Hats off to the mothers of those Sanderses. Hats off to y'all. And hats off to everybody connected to that Sanders family. Travis, people move with better etiquette. Hats off to what's Darius, that whole Sanders family, man. It's a lot of families, especially black families, who ought to come together and do like the Sanders family doing. When they were doing that draft, they stuck together. They, even though they had a good time, they were still praising together because they already knew, because I remember that one story about Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, and, in the black church, they say a bad Negro. They was in they was in a moment where the fire, the Fahrenheit was, whether this happened or not, was cranked up, and they still didn't budge. And them Sanders families, they still don't budge. So commend y'all. And there's a lot of us who need to control and who need to manage our family like that in the times of adversity. And there's other families that's out there doing the big like that, but that's just the one that I see the most when I wake up every day. At some point, I check Well Off Media. I get on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? I watch every Colorado Buffaloes football game. I watched them when Coach Prime was at Jackson State. I watched every Jackson State game for 2 years in a row. I ain't even really know Jackson State existed until Coach Prime was there. I ain't know about the band until Coach Prime was there. And I'm not saying that Jackson State wouldn't have been Jackson State had Coach Prime and the Sanders family never touched down there, but I didn't know. I don't live down there. I don't know. I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So hats goes off to, once again, how God is using the Sanders family. But back to talking about the Bible, where are the biblical principles, y'all? Like, you got this whole situation going on with, like I said, Antonio Brown barking at Coach Prime and his sons, and then Pac-Man Jones check Antonio Brown, then that Asante Samuels thing, and I see Asante Samuels did stand up and say something to AB, according to the tweets and reports that's coming online. I don't know which is which is true, which is not, but we ain't talking Bible. I got people in my own family woofing and barking at me, and I said to a relative just yesterday, I said, hey, how about we do a video call, and I'll just hear you out. He was like, he ain't down for doing dumb SHIT. I'm like, okay, well, you don't want no solution. So I've already Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 17. Once I've done that, I'm getting out of God's way. You get what I'm saying? And I just want to encourage y'all. You got the Matthew chapter 18, 15 through 17. You got the Ezekiel 33. Just read the whole book of Ezekiel chapter 33. You got to what First Timothy is saying, and Thessalonians was saying, and what I am in Timothy now, is really talking about just being a good steward of what God put you here to do for real. It's talking about the righteousness, the righteous will be lifted up. What I read today in Timothy, I want to say it's Timothy 2, it talked about, being a soldier who was, and remembering that the warfare that you're in, you got to remember who put you in that warfare, who drafted you. So if God drafted you to the kingdom to do what you was called here to do, you don't owe it to that branch of the military. You owe it to God. I'm talking about figuratively and realistically, that our service and whatever we do, from home to job to work, entrepreneurship, which is a job as well, to parenting, to being a family member, to doing whatever it is that you do on day to day. Whatever we do, we must do it in remembering the war that we're in, that God assigned us to. So if God assigned you to be the change, read that Bible, Genesis through to Revelations. King James Version is the Bible I've been reading. I got about 40 pages, 50 pages to go. I've probably been saying that for months now because I read very slow. I annotate as I read. I read one chapter some days. Some days I read one verse. And some days I at least read at least one verse. I'll put it that way. But yeah, y'all, we got to get to these biblical principles, not just reading them, not just preaching them. We must do them. We must do them, y'all. Matthew chapter 25 is a parable of the talents. I was just telling the youngin about it last week. We must use our talents and use them for good. Biblical principles. Every time I turn on Instagram, I see a half-naked woman up there. What's the biblical principle with that? I can block that half-naked woman or not, or scroll, then another half-naked woman appears somewhere else. What's the biblical principles? I remember one time I DM'd the young lady and I said, look, I remember how you used to post and how you post now. You know, I think that maybe she blocked me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm not gonna say I don't look. I'm not gonna say it don't become tempestuous for me. But I had to unfollow a lot of women just for the simple fact every time I turn on my Instagram, they posting up half naked. You get what I'm saying? And so it's everywhere, y'all. And it's pornography is real. You know what I'm saying? I had to decline from that, and I can't remember the last time I actually watched the porn because I've been practicing. It takes discipline, and I'm keeping it real and keeping it funky with y'all because biblical principle, it tells you about the suffering that you will endure from certain things. If you are a person who having sex a lot of times with somebody you're not married to or who God didn't join with you, if you are a person who's always consistently watching pornography, if you are a person who's consistently gambling, the Bible tells you about consequences for it. Y'all, I'm gonna keep it all the way 100 with y'all. Every time that I was watching porn, when I was watching porn at its peak, on a lot of times, it was when I had too much time on my hands. I was at home, had too much time on my hands. And those were most of the nights I had a nightmare at the end of the night. A lot of these seductive media platforms, they carry a whole lot of spirits that come from people all across the world. And when you associate yourself with it, you just never know. Those demons might get to attacking you. So we got to apply biblical principles. And y'all, I am not perfect. And usually when you are trying to help deliver somebody else through something, that's when you get tempted the most. So I already know my line about to probably blow up today. So Shorty's probably about to come out the woodwork. Hey, how you been, Fred? How you doing? I want to see you. Where you at? You know what I'm saying? The test is coming. But the Bible says, you know, and repetitively, it really just says flee from evil. Repetitively, it says, I'm going to just read y'all what I read today from Timothy, because I'm not going to keep giving y'all me. I'm going to give y'all what word says. Timothy chapter 2. You therefore, my son, be strong in grace that it is in Christ Jesus, and that the things that you have heard from me among many witnesses commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No one engaged in warfare entertaining himself with the affairs of this life. So we don't entertain ourselves with the affairs of this life because we have a better life to live and lead. That's what I get from that, as it is to the Lord, to the Most High, that He may please Him who enlisted Him as a soldier. We didn't enlist ourselves. If you were called, you were called by God. Also, I ain't talking about the military branches. I'm talking about the warfare that Christ put us in, God put us in, the Maker put it in, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah, all the Yeshua, as people would say. And also, if anyone competes in athletics, he is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. The hard-working farmer must be first to partake of the crops. Consider what I say, and may the Lord give you understanding in all things. So we can't get understanding. I think I'm being too loud. So we can't get understanding. We cannot get understanding. We cannot get progress. We cannot go forward if we are not succumbing, if we are not subduing to what this Bible say. And that's why things can't get better, y'all. I just want to get that to y'all, and I wish y'all a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Keep it there.